I didn't steal anything, but $4,000 in cash in my sock is tips. Tips?
You're taking $4 out of passenger luggage.
It's a common thing.
On September 14th, inside the busy terminal of Miami International Airport, lead security officer Marcus Vance was placed in handcuffs. A clever undercover sting operation had just caught him running a systemic baggage theft ring right under everyone's noses. Over the course of several months, more than $32,000 in passenger cash had completely vanished from security checkpoints. What started as a single, routine passenger complaint about missing vacation money quickly unraveled into a massive federal investigation. By the time detectives stepped in, they uncovered a dark, calculated scheme hiding behind a badge, ending in serious felony grand theft charges. Deep inside Terminal 3 of Miami International Airport, the constant hum of rolling suitcases and overhead flight announcements fades away. Behind a heavy, unmarked door, detectives sit in a small, windowless holding room alongside airport loss prevention officers. The air in the room is tense. Outside, thousands of travelers rush to catch their flights, completely unaware that a major crime is quietly unfolding right where they expect to be safest. The entire investigation started with a frantic call from an international traveler. After passing through the primary X-ray screening lane, the passenger opened their carry-on bag to grab their passport, only to discover that $2,500 in cash was gone. They were positive the money was inside the bag right before it entered the tunnel. But when the bag came out on the other side of the belt, the cash had vanished. Instead of brushing it off as a simple mistake, loss prevention officers immediately pulled up the airport's high-definition security system. They began reviewing the hidden, overhead CCTV cameras zoomed directly in on the screening lane. What they saw on the screen was shocking. As the victim placed their belongings into a plastic bin, lead security officer Marcus Vance stepped into the frame. He worked with smooth, practiced speed. As the bin moved toward the X-ray machine, Vance casually reached out with his gloved hand. In one slick motion, he dipped into the passenger's bag, palmed a thick stack of $100 bills, and slid the cash straight into his deep uniform pocket. Without missing a beat, he pushed the empty bin down the line and stepped back, waiting for the next target. It was clear this was not a quick impulse or a one-time mistake. Vance moved with total confidence, acting like a man who had done this dozens of times before without ever getting caught. The detectives realized they were not just looking at a simple theft. They were watching a professional, operating right in front of everyone. Knowing they needed more than just video clips to lock down a rock-solid case, Detective Miller decided to take a quiet, tactical approach. Instead of rushing onto the security floor with handcuffs, he walked down to the terminal and casually invited Marcus Vance into a quiet administrative office. Miller framed the meeting as nothing more than a routine equipment audit, keeping his voice light and friendly to make sure Vance's guard stayed completely down. Vance walked into the office looking relaxed and totally unbothered. Sitting back in his chair, he immediately began to boast about his 5-year career at the airport, talking up his clean employment record and his strong dedication to the job. He proudly explained that whenever travelers accidentally dropped loose change or left small items behind in the plastic screening bins, he was always the honest worker who picked the money up and turned it straight into the lost and found office. Detective Miller smiled, nodding along like he believed every single word. But behind that calm smile, the detective was carefully setting a trap. He slowly leaned forward and asked a simple, straightforward question. Had anyone accidentally left any cash in a screening bin today? Without missing a beat or taking a single second to think, Vance locked himself directly into a lie. He shook his head firmly and said, "Never today. I always report loose money immediately." With those 7 words, Vance walked right into the trap. He had no idea that Detective Miller was sitting there with a full stack of evidence, holding the exact proof that cash had indeed vanished from a bin on his lane just hours earlier. By denying that any money had been left behind, Vance completely cut off his own escape route, guaranteeing he could never later claim the cash in his pockets was just an innocent mistake. The relaxed mood in the room vanished instantly as Detective Miller dropped his warm smile. The trap was set, and it was time to close it. Miller slid a thick folder across the table, revealing that this was no routine audit. Detectives had actually been running a secret, multi-week investigation, and the numbers were damning. They had tracked 14 separate cash loss reports from furious travelers over the past few months, and every single one tied directly to Vance's exact shift logs. Vance's face went pale, but the real blow came next. Miller turned a laptop toward him and hit play, displaying crystal clear, high-definition overhead footage from earlier that day. The video showed Vance's gloved hand dipping into a passenger's bag, grabbing a stack of cash and slipping it straight into his uniform pocket. Trapped by his own image on screen, Vance panicked and immediately changed his story. "Okay, fine," he blurted out, his voice shaking. "I picked up $200 today because my rent is late, but that's the only time." Realizing the interview had now turned into an official criminal interrogation, Detective Miller stopped him and clearly read Vance his Miranda rights. He made sure Vance understood his right to remain silent and his right to an attorney. Instead of remaining silent or asking for a lawyer, Vance kept talking, desperately trying to explain away the video evidence. From a legal standpoint, Vance made a critical error. Under a famous Supreme Court decision known as Berghaus v. Tompkins, if a suspect understands their rights and chooses to keep speaking anyway, that action counts as waiving those rights. Every single word Vance uttered after the warning was now completely legal to use against him in court. As Vance continued to scramble for excuses, the legal reality of his actions was closing in fast. What Vance thought was just taking pocket change here and there had actually triggered some of the harshest criminal laws in the state. Under Florida Statute Section 812.014, theft charges are strictly based on the total dollar amount stolen. Small thefts usually count as minor offenses, but when the value crosses $20,000, the law steps up drastically. Because investigators had traced over $32,000 in stolen cash back to Vance's shifts over several weeks, his actions instantly jumped into second-degree grand theft. In Florida, that is a serious Class B felony, carrying a maximum sentence of up to 15 years in state prison. Vance might have believed that he could fight the case by arguing that detectives looked through his work locker and airport logs without a search warrant, but the law was completely against him. While the Fourth Amendment normally protects people from unfair government searches, airport environments operate under very different rules. Under the border search exception and standard airport security laws, maintaining public safety inside an international transportation hub takes priority. On top of that, as an airport employee using official government equipment, Vance had no legal expectation of privacy while working on the job. The security logs, overhead camera feeds, and even his employee locker belonged to the facility, meaning detectives could search them immediately without needing a judge to sign a warrant. Every legal door was slamming shut, leaving Vance with no defense, no privacy shield, and a looming felony charge that carried up to 15 years behind bars. The trap was fully set, and the time for talking was officially over. With all his legal defenses stripped away, the final moments of Marcus Vance's security career unfolded right there in the small interrogation room. Detective Miller told Vance to stand up and place his hands behind his back.
Explain this.
It was time for a physical search incident to arrest.
Officer, please, you have to
As officers searched his uniform, they quickly realized just how far Vance had gone to hide his crimes. Tucked deep inside his heavy work boots and hidden beneath the inner lining of his official jacket, detectives pulled out thick, rolled-up stacks of cash. In total, Vance was carrying $4,200, including marked bait bills that detectives had specifically placed in the screening lane earlier that day. As the cold steel of the handcuffs clicked around his wrists, panic completely took over. Vance lost whatever composure he had left and blurted out on camera, "If I give all the money back right now, can we just handle this internally with HR?" It was a final, desperate admission of guilt, captured clearly on Bodycam for a jury to see. Officers immediately began seizing his belongings, stripping him of the power and access he had abused for months. They took his airport security badges, cutting off his clearance to the facility, and confiscated his personal phone to search for potential evidence of past sales or accomplices. Marcus Vance, once a trusted lead officer guiding thousands of travelers safely through checkpoint lanes, was escorted out of the terminal in handcuffs and loaded into a police cruiser bound for county booking. Looking back at how this case unfolded, every key player left behind a clear record of their actions, some showing total professional skill and others showcasing a complete disaster of decision-making. The lead investigator earns a solid grade A. Detective Miller handled the case with exceptional discipline from start to finish. Instead of rushing into an arrest based on suspicion alone, the investigative team used marked bait bills, secured high-definition video logs, and built an airtight case. During the confrontation, Miller used classic trap questioning, letting Vance lock himself into a blatant lie before revealing a single piece of evidence. That patient tactic completely destroyed any defense Vance could try to use later in court. On the flip side, Marcus Vance earns a disastrous grade D-. From the moment he walked into the office, Vance committed almost every major mistake possible during a police interaction. He gave up his right to remain silent, changed his story 3 different times as evidence appeared, and topped it all off by begging for a self-incriminating HR deal on live bodycam footage. An experienced defense attorney could do almost nothing to fix the damage Vance caused to himself in just one afternoon. Finally, the airport loss prevention team receives a respectable grade B+. Once passenger claims flagged a clear pattern of missing money, the security team moved quickly, setting up targeted camera views and working smoothly alongside police. However, they miss an A because basic blind spots and checkpoint oversight allowed a single worker to quietly pocket cash for months before internal systems finally caught on. The evidence was collected, the grades were set, and the case was ready for court, leaving only one question. How would the justice system handle a trusted guard turned thief? This shocking airport theft leaves behind 3 critical legal lessons that everyone should remember. First, struggling to pay bills or earning a low wage will never excuse breaking the law. Courts look strictly at a person's intentional actions, meaning personal money problems cannot protect anyone from grand theft charges. Second, blurted words carry heavy legal consequences. When a suspect makes voluntary, unprompted comments during an arrest, like Vance asking for an HR deal, those spontaneous statements can be used in court as evidence of guilt, even if officers were not actively asking questions at the time. Third, staying silent requires action. Once Miranda rights are read, choosing to keep talking to police acts as an active waiver of your rights, giving prosecutors full permission to use every word spoken against you. Following his arrest, Marcus Vance faced the harsh reality of the legal system. Prosecutors officially charged him with 2 counts of second-degree grand theft alongside additional charges for official misconduct. Stripped of his badge and facing years behind bars, his days of pocketing passenger cash were permanently over. If you were sitting on the jury in this case, would you accept Vance's excuse of workplace stress and money troubles, or would you send him away for the full 15-year statutory maximum? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and do not forget to like and subscribe for more deep dive legal breakdowns.